I welcome all of you. Am I audible to everyone behind? Yeah.
Yes.
So I thank Vineet for arranging this program, inviting us, and I thank all of you also for participating today evening. And Karna was the character that I personally connected with the most when I first saw the Mahabharata. I had heard Mahabharata stories from my parents, from my grandparents. Then I saw the Mahabharata depicted on TV. And during that time, Karna was born as a hero in a royal family, but he was not recognized as such because of his mother giving him birth before her marriage. So she entrusted him to to destiny's will, and he was raised by a family which was known as the charioteers family. So in pre-modern societies, people were often defined to a large extent by their births. So although Karna was a Kshatriya, as the technical word is in the Vedic context, he was a warrior. He was born in the warrior family, but he was always called as a charioteer's son. And that label hurt him a lot. So he is called as a Suta or a Sutaputra. Suta is a charioteer. Sutaputra is the son of a charioteer. So the reason I connected with him was that all of us, we have problems, we have limitations which we have to face in our life. Now there are some problems which we can do something about. There are some problems which we seem to be helpless in dealing with. So for Karna, he was always labeled as a Sutaputra. And I connected with him because, soon after I was born, I got polio, I had a physical handicap. So some of the students in my school used to tease me as a cripple. So now at that time, the label hurt because I was helpless about it. And so I could sympathize with Karna because he was helpless about the birth that he had got. And at that time, one is in a very emotionally vulnerable situation. Because we want the world to accept us as we are, rather than expecting us to change something which is not in our power to change. And when we don't get that acceptance for as we are, most of the time, and suddenly we find someone who accepts us, we get so overwhelmed by that acceptance that we become blind to the faults of that person, if that person has any faults. And unfortunately, this is what happened to Karna. Karna became a great archer, and he, when his Arjuna, who is the person to whom the Bhagavad Gita was spoken, so Arjuna and the other students of the greatest martial teacher of that time, Drona, they were all exhibiting their skills. And when they were exhibiting their skills, Arjuna excelled everyone else in archery. And then Karna came over there and he said, I will equal all that Arjuna has done. And he asked, do you have the permission to exhibit my skills? Now at one level, this act was like an act of gate crashing. Now suppose there is Princeton has a department for acting, and the graduates of the Princeton University are in a convocation ceremony exhibiting their acting skills. And then somebody who is not a Princeton graduate, he comes in and says, I will excel your best student. Well, I will equal or excel your best student. Well, there are forums for that, but at the convocation ceremony in Princeton, that is not the forum for that. So Karna just came in over there because he had that need, that craving to be recognized. And this was the academy where the best warriors were being trained. So when he gate crashed like this, the organizers graciously allowed him to exhibit his skills. And he equaled Arjuna in every way. And then, when everybody was astonished, he felt that this could be an opportunity to further prove his mettle. and so he said, I would like to challenge Arjuna for a duel. Now, this itself was taking things a bit too far, because as I said, he was an outsider over there. And there, but then, at that time, his antecedents were naturally asked. Who are you? Where do you come from? Naturally, anybody comes in, we would see their skills, but we also know where you got trained from. So then, he said that duel can only be among equals. So at that time, he was asked, okay, who are your parents? Because one way to know a person's antecedents is by their lineage. So at that time, his head drooped down. And when it was obvious that he did not have a royal lineage, so at that time, the Mahabharata is actually a conflict between two sets of cousins. The Pandavas, among whom Arjuna is the foremost archer, and Kauravas, who are headed by Duryodhana. Now, Duryodhana was a very insecure person himself. And this little backstory I'll have to give. See, the Pandavas had gone away, actually when their father had retired. And then the Pandavas had been born in the forest. So in the meanwhile, Duryodhana was born in the palace and he was groomed to be the heir. And that's why he had a sense of entitlement. Oh, I am going to be there. And when the Pandavas came back, because their father died in an unfortunate accident, then now there was some sort of uncertainty who would become the next heir. Because the Pandavas, their eldest among them, Yudhishthir, was older than Duryodhana in age. And whereas Duryodhana was brash and arrogant, Yudhishthir was courteous and gentle. And he soon won the hearts of everyone. So Duryodhana had that insecurity that I am always being threatened by the Pandavas. The Pandavas never perceived him as a competitor. They were ready to live in peace. But he wanted to have his superiority established. And he saw at that time, he felt that I am good enough. So among the Pandavas, Yudhishthir was virtuous, but he was not a very formidable warrior. Among the Pandavas, the two main warriors were Bhima and Arjuna. Bhima was a great mace fighter, and Duryodhana felt that I can deal with him. But as far as Arjuna was concerned, he did not have any match to him. And when he saw Karna, he felt, this is my opportunity. Now Karna will be my foil for Arjuna. And he immediately grabbed that opportunity. And he gave a speech that actually seemed very egalitarian. But it was very calculated, politically calculated. He said, just look at the caliber of Karna. How can he have not be having a royal lineage? And if you consider the lineage is what is important, then I will make him a king right now. And I will bestow him a kingdom. And right there in front of everyone, he made Karna the king of an empire, of a kingdom named Anga. Now for Karna, when he was this was a moment of turbulent emotions for Karna. Because he had just proved his equality to the greatest archer. This could have been a moment of great glory. But then immediately, he was being disqualified because of his lineage. And then, he had come hoping to get some recognition as a great warrior, and suddenly he was enthroned as a king. He was overwhelmed. He was extremely grateful. And Duryodhana was a good politician. Politics is all about making connections. So when he was offered the crown, at that time he became overwhelmed with tears in his eyes. He said, Duryodhana, you have saved my honor. You have given me such great honor. How can I repay you? So Duryodhana also knew how to pull at the strings of people's hearts. He said, I don't want anything except your friendship. What he wanted was his archery skills to counter Arjuna. But when he said that I don't want anything except your friendship, Karna was overwhelmed and they embraced each other. And from this point onwards, Karna, in a sense, gave up his life for Duryodhana. And as later events would reveal, Duryodhana had quite a strong malicious streak within him, which grew further and further. When these cousins were just children, barely at the age of 10, he had organized a whole conspiracy to have his cousin Bhima poisoned. somehow Bhima had survived. So at that emotionally vulnerable position, when Duryodhana offered him the help, Karna, whatever virtue he had, whatever intelligence he had, all that got eclipsed by a overwhelming sense of gratitude to Duryodhana. And now it's 2 points here which I'll conclude, and then I'll hand over the dais to going through. That first is, when Duryodhana gave the kingdom to Karna, it was not his kingdom to give. Because he was not the king. He was just a prince, and he was not even the heir apparent. He had not been enthroned to become the next king. So he did not have the authority to give a kingdom at all. But when he did it presumptuously, the Pandavas also went along with it because they saw it as a matter of the family's honor. Now, if our family promises something, we cannot rescind on the promise. We cannot challenge the promise. So the Pandava, although at one level we may say Duryodhana was very generous in giving Karna the kingdom, but at another level, it is like, if I come and tell you that, I give this hall in charity to you, it doesn't belong to me. Who am I to give it? Isn't it? So Duryodhana was in one sense like that. He did not have any claim on the kingdom. He did that, and the Pandavas went along with that. So it was not that Duryodhana was especially charitable, because it was not his charity to give. And secondly, at this point, he felt vindicated in his rivalry towards Arjuna. He had a natural rivalry with Arjuna because both of them were great archers, but that rivalry became reinforced with a sense of enmity. Now, rivalry is, you can have two tennis players who are rivals, but they can be friends afterwards. But it's not that they are conspiring to kill each other off the field to win the match. So where it was a rivalry, because of the enmity between Duryodhana and the Pandavas, and Karna totally siding with Duryodhana, from this point they became enemies. And that enmity led him to do atrocious things in future. That I request going through to speak on that.
Thank you, Chaitanya Charan. So before we get into Karna, basically Mahabharata is considered as Mahabharata is synonymous to life. It talks about life. It's a collection of events. So many events happen in our lives. It's a collection of events. And every event is connected to people, characters. Right? No events happen without people around us, things around us. So therefore there are hundreds of characters in Mahabharata. And Karna is happened to be one such character. One of the subject I was discussing with Vineet was, people sympathize with Karna, but do they identify? Sympathizing with Karna and identifying that I want to be like him is different. Because identification involves success and failure. Sympathizing is that you see from, I feel for him, but do I want to be like him? Unfortunately, Karna, with all skills, unlimited qualifications, good values, good characters also, he experienced repeated failure in his life. I remember in India, there is a huge emotional connect to Karna. If there is an election between Partha, Arjuna and Karna, like a hypothetical election if you have, Arjuna will lose his deposit also. Actually, because I do a lot of seminars on Mahabharata. When I wrote this book on Karna on trial, one very religious person, he came to me, he said, come on, this is unfair. As if he is Karna. No, he felt very bad that I am talking about certain events of Karna's life. So therefore, Karna represents certain character, certain concepts. He is a personality, but he also represents certain concepts. Again, Mahabharata says, now people always discuss who is right and who is wrong. Sometimes people define dharma is synonymous to right or good. And sometimes people define adharma synonymous to bad and evil. But actually, dharma is not synonymous to good. Adharma is not synonymous to bad. Good is one aspect of dharma, but it is not complete in itself. For example, we share these stories to, I deal with a lot of children in schools. In India, you go to villages, one of the greatest evil for people to grow is because men's addiction to repeated drinking, to the extent where they beat up their children, they take away the wealth of their wives, their ornaments, because they're addicted, and because of that there is no prosperity, they don't grow. So there are two brothers, twins, they were raised in such surrounding. They grew up very nicely, they grew up and eventually one became very good. Very good means he became educated, he got a very good job, he became very responsible, and other continued the legacy of his father. So somebody asked them, how is that, you are so nice? And the young boy who had grown up, he said, what do you expect after having such a father? The emotions, the statement, you can feel that this emotion was, what do you expect after having such a father? That was the statement. And this man went and asked another son, brother of his. He said, why are you like this? You're drinking, spoiling your life. He made the same statement with same emotions. He said, what do you expect after having such a father? Therefore, events in our life do not change. The statements do not change. Even the feelings don't change. What changes is how do we translate our statement, our emotions and our event. And that is what differentiates Karna from other characters in the Mahabharata. It's very interesting. Therefore, dharma is not about whether it is good or bad. If you now analyze, the young man who became prosperous, was it good that his father was drunkard? If you ask the other guys, was it good that his father was a drunkard or a bad that his father was a drunkard? Therefore, good and bad is extremely relative. And therefore, when people debate, discuss, argue, have a great conflict, if you just Google about Karna, you will find how people abuse each other. Even though Karna has gone back, has a great friendship with Arjuna in the heavenly world. That's what the Mahabharata explains. But we will keep fighting about his life. And therefore, sympathy is like a drug. Sympathy does not allow us to grow. And especially when you sympathize with somebody and give them some lullabies, some toffee, some things, then what happens? They become addicted to that. And unfortunately, Karna was used by many people to get their things done. That is what Chaitanya Charan was mentioning very nicely. It was not that Duryodhana, of course Duryodhana was a politician, what role, what game, what cards he played was naturally the right card for a politician to play. After all, a politician thinks about his own growth. And whoever supports him to grow, he will naturally make him his ally. Right. He did that. But Karna failed to recognize this aspect that I should not look for sympathy. I should look for opportunity. I should not look for charity, but I should look for a facility within that difficult situation also. If you take for that matter, Krishna was also born in a very difficult and challenging situation. He was born in the prison house. And immediately after his birth was adopted by somebody else. Adoption, is it good or bad? Again, therefore dharma is very subtle. Therefore, unless we understand the concept of dharma, this whole concept of good and bad, good and bad, good and bad is very challenging. I'll conclude with another example, then I'll ask him to speak. We tell this story to kids. Like in India, if you come to the train stations, I am from Bombay. I remember when New Yorker came to Bombay. And we asked him, do you want to travel in a local train? Oh, I'm a New Yorker, it's okay, it's easy for me. He didn't realize what Bombay train means. So when he got into Bombay local train rush hours, he said, oh, this is not like New York. This is, unique speciality of Bombay. Right, he could understand it is not New York, it's Bombay. Traffic, so difficult. So there are a lot of trains moving around, and we always tell this story. There is a motorman is driving, and suddenly he sees that 7 children are playing on one track where the train is supposed to go. It's a junction, and there is another track where he can go, there is no problem, and only 2 kids are playing. So going on a train, going on a track where 7 kids are playing, it's a legitimate, legal, proper track where every day you fly. So now the question for a motorman is, where should he drive? If he drives over truth, because driving on a regular track is like you're following the rules and regulation. But rules and regulation will kill 7 children. And if you drive over compassion track, choice between killing 7 children or killing 2 children, which one should he choose? The immediate answer children give, I will put on brake on the train. They create a third option which does not exist. In life, sometimes the third option does not exist, but that exists in our mind. It's a myth. Right, because if you put a brake, then you have to tell. You can't put a brake, because if you put a brake, then you kill more people. Not 2, not 7, 300 people. Right. So when you say, okay, they will say, most of the time they will say, if they are not idealistic, no, they'll say, no, I will drive over a track where only 2 kids are playing, so that I can save 7 children. But the logic does not stop there. What if those 7 children, unfortunately, become terrorists? Therefore, what is good and bad is very relative. Therefore, dharma is extremely sensitive, extremely fluid. Therefore, Chanakya, very interestingly, he says, when you rise in the morning, he says you should read Mahabharata. He doesn't say Mahabharata. He says, Prata Dyuta Prasangana. Early morning one should hear about gambling. Because Mahabharata is all about gambling. Gambling is one event. But actually, what is Mahabharata? Mahabharata is all about making choices. You only have the power, you only have the, what control you have is to make choice. And if you can make choices based upon dharma, then there is some chances that those choices will lead to create a legacy of dharma. And that is what Karna, in one sense, for whatever reason, he was not able to access to the principle of dharma. Rather, he got stuck into a right and wrong, victim and sympathy. Thank you.
So I'll talk about the choices that were made, especially during the gambling match. Just before that, a quick backflash. That Karna, he was born in an unprivileged background as a charioteer's son. But actually life is never fair for whoever it may be. Life always gives a raw deal to someone or the other at some time or the other. Even the Pandavas, although they were born in a royal family, their father passed away when they were young. And just with their mother at that time, they were thrust into a situation where they had a malicious cousin who wanted to kill them, who tried to poison them, who tried to burn them alive. And even after that, they had as a guardian uncle who was attached, was so attached to his son that he was blind to the difficulties that his nephews were going through. So everybody gets a raw deal. What we do with that, with what life offers us, that is what is important. And I'll contrast between the incident of Draupadi's disrobing about the choices that Karna made and the choices that Draupadi made. So the Pandavas became the emperors of the world after performing the Rajasuya Yajna. And then after that, Duryodhana was very envious on seeing their prosperity. And he decided that they are too powerful for me to defeat militarily, so let me defeat them by gambling. And he had them come for a gambling match. Now Yudhishthir is a conflicted character. On one side, he knows the dangers of gambling. At the same time, he's attracted to gambling. So the part of him says, no, I don't want to gamble. Why should we gamble? But when he is invited, he accepts that. He sees that as a instruction from his father figure, his uncle whom he treats as his father. And then as the gambling match goes on, now it's actually a rigged match. Why? Because gambling match has to be between two people who are playing. So it has to be between Duryodhana and Yudhishthira. But Duryodhana, he arranges for Shakuni to play. Now it's like, suppose there is a wrestling match between two amateur wrestlers. And that's how it is invited. You bill everyone. It's billed as a match between these two amateur wrestlers. And one of the amateur wrestlers, right at the time of the match, when everybody is assembled, he gets a professional wrestler over there. Fight with him. And if this other wrestler says, hey, this is not fair, then this person says, if you are afraid, you need not fight. Now, it becomes very difficult for this amateur. It's unfair, but if he insists on it being unfair, he is now being labeled as a coward. So that was the card which Duryodhana played when Yudhishthira protested. That is, no, he cannot be playing on your behalf. Shakuni can't be playing. He said, no, if you are afraid, you needn't play. So Yudhishthira, he felt his Kshatriya honor impugned by this, and he started playing. And as he started playing, one by one, he started losing things. And eventually, he was desperately hoping that at least one thing I will win and then I'll be able to redeem this disaster. He could see what the disaster was happening. And when nothing was there, he gambled his own brothers and eventually gambled himself. And then when nothing was left, he gambled his wife Draupadi. Now, here also it's significant that, some people say that, it is how could a husband have gambled his wife? That's true, how could he have? But at the same time, we see that he gambled her after he had gambled himself. After he had gambled all his property. In that sense, he did not treat her like any other property. It is not like his horses, his chariot, his jewels, his weapons. No, after he had lost himself, that means she was more dear to him than himself. But then when he gambled her, and he lost her also. And then Draupadi, she was just in her inner chambers, and she had just been celebrating, in a sense, because she was the queen of the king who was the emperor of the world. And she had some idea that something might go wrong, but the extent of the catastrophe that came was completely inconceivable. And she was told that she is being summoned into the royal assembly by the elders because she has been lost and now she has to be like a slave for the Kauravas. She said, how did Yudhishthira gamble me? Did he have nothing else to gamble? He said, no, he lost everything. Now, Draupadi exhibits great intelligence over here. And she catches on. He says, if Yudhishthira had gambled and lost himself, then how could he have gambled me? If he was not his own master, how was he my master to gamble? And now this is actually technicality, but when you're sinking, you hold on to straw. So that's what she does over here. And then she sends the messenger back. And the messenger is sent back by Duryodhana saying that, tell her to come and ask herself. He said that, I'm in a state of undress right now, I cannot come. Then he said Dushasana, Duryodhana's brother, and he drags her. He says, you are our slave, and whatever condition you are in, you should come to us. He drags her by the hair. It's very insulting. And then she again repeats her question. And unfortunately, all the elders over there, they get caught in the technicality. Yes, they are unable to answer the question. Yes, sometimes what happens, people get caught in the details and they forget the essential principle. And the principle of the law is to protect. So, Now here a woman is being dishonored in public, and unfortunately nobody stops. And curiously enough, at this particular point, one of the Kaurava brothers, Vikarna, he stops. Even his conscience becomes activated, and he says, "This is unjust." And he says, "This whole gambling match is rigged." He gives a series of reasons. He says, "Yudhishthira gambled because he was forced to. This gambling match is rigged because Shaguni fought instead of Duryodhana, and Duryodhana got carried away by the mania of gambling." And when that happens, when people get carried away by the mania of activities such as gambling or womanizing or animal hunting or intoxication, then they do things which should not be taken very seriously. He says, I feel this whole match is null and void, and everything that Pandavas have lost should be given back. And actually, everybody in the assembly applauds. But one person rises in anger, and that is Karna. And Karna says, "Oh, Vikarna, you are just a child. What do you know? When all these elders are silent, do you presume that you know better than them?" Well, he's presuming that he knows better than them when they are all silent. But he says that actually nobody forced Yudhishthira to gamble. And now is the most offensive thing. He says that Draupadi, as far as her being dishonored, she's already married 5 men. So she's a prostitute. And because she's a prostitute, even if she is with single cloth or no cloth, whatever we want, we can do with her. What is her honor? At this point, the Pandavas are burning with rage. And this is completely uncalled for. Totally uncalled for. And then it is he who suggests that now she is our slave, let us disrobe her. Now Kshatriya, the Sanskrit word Kshatriya means Shatatrayate iti Kshatriya, one who protects others from hurt. So Dukarna had the competence of a Kshatriya, but unfortunately he lacked the character of a Kshatriya. Competence means he had the skills to fight, but a character means he should protect others. Here unfortunately he was exploiting a helpless woman. And now at this particular point, just before this happened, when Draupadi was asking this question, that if could Yudhishthira have gambled me? So Duryodhana tried to play husband against wife, and he said, "Oh Draupadi, if you say that Dharmaraj Yudhishthira did adharma by gambling you, then I will return everything to you." So now for a wife, she would practically be disowning her husband. Now her husband had done wrong, and later on in the forest she castigates him strongly. But here in public, she refuses to fall for the bait. And she says that those who decided that this gambling match itself was right, those who instructed him to play in this gambling match, let them decide whether it is right or wrong. So literally Draupadi is a victim over here, and she's a victim in a far greater sense than Karna ever was. But what does she do? She still doesn't berate anyone. She asks, what is dharma over here? And she stays by her loved ones. And eventually, when Karna suggests that let her be disrobed, so Dushyasan comes and tries to disrobe her, and it just goes on and on trying to disrobe her. But Krishna miraculously arranges for her sari to become endless. And Draupadi's honor is at that time protected. And at the end of it all, when things go just far beyond the head, at that time Dhritarashtra recognizes. All the Pandavas, they get infuriated. Till now, it has been a threat to their life. It has been a conflict, but now when their wife is dishonored, a line is crossed. And all the Pandavas take vows. Bhima takes a vow that I will kill Duryodhana, I will kill Dushasana. Dushasana had tried to disrobe Draupadi, and Duryodhana had exposed his thigh, inviting her in an openly lurid gesture to come and be with Draupadi. So at that time, when they all take this fierce vows, Arjuna takes a vow to kill Karna. So at that time, Dhritarashtra realizes that things have gone too far. And then, coming to his senses, he says, "Oh Pandavas, oh Draupadi, I had just called this match for fun. Now things have gone too far, so let's stop it all. And I will ask you for whatever you want, you can ask, I will give it to you." She said, "Just give my husbands their freedom and give them their weapons." And he says, with their weapons, they will be able to get everything. So in her words also there is a threat over there. So Dhritarashtra realizes, he says, I'm not satisfied, please ask for something more. He says, she first asked for Yudhishthir's freedom, she asked for. Then she asked for our remaining husbands, and she says, ask for their weapons also. Then finally Dhritarashtra, when she refuses to ask for too much, Dhritarashtra gives everything back to them. He says, please live in peace, and if I and my wife Gandhari have done anything good for them, good for you, please remember that and try to give up your animosity towards my sons. Now at this point, things could have been saved. Although it was very hurting, things could have been saved. But Karna still couldn't resist the temptation to have a cheap shot. And what was the cheap shot? Oh, as the warriors were walking out, oh, look at these heroes. They were saved by a woman. They were saved by a woman. Now, actually, throughout this his incident, if you look at the now, I cannot go into the full incident over here, but in terms of outlines, actually Draupadi is the victim in this incident. But overall, if we see, it is Draupadi's character that shines the brightest. No, she is the person who remembers dharma. She reminds others of dharma, and she inspires Krishna to come and intervene, and she is the person who saves the day. And unfortunately, Karna emerges the darkest. It is he who takes the gambling match from a match between two parties to an assault on the honor of a woman, both by words and by actions. And later on, Karna regrets this. Later on, when he meets Bhishma, he tells that, what I did on that day was terrible. My desire was to please Duryodhana. And in wanting to please him, I spoke and did things which I regret. So again, it brings us to the same point that in his emotionally vulnerable situation, when Duryodhana obligated him to himself, Karna lost his sense of right or wrong. And that's how he ended up doing atrociously wrong things. So actually, if somebody does something good for us, naturally we'll be grateful for them. But, we also have to be aware of what we are doing for them. And he got carried away, and the result of it was, sometimes Duryodhana manipulated him, and sometimes he himself did things which were grievously wrong. So actually our friends, we have to be careful of whom we accept as our friends. And by accepting Duryodhana uncritically as a friend, and not just accepting as a friend, by devoting himself totally to just the pleasure of Duryodhana, Karna lost all his sense of ethics and morality. And he emerged as a character who was wronged by his birth, but who did a grievous wrong over here. And the consequences of that wrong eventually manifested in the Kurukshetra war. So we all get a raw deal in life. But as they say, if life gives you a lemon, make a lemonade. So, but unfortunately, Karna, when he got a raw deal, he just hung on to that, and then he made grievously wrong choices later on in his life. The Mahabharata says that Karna's mistake was his misdirected loyalty. His loyalty was there, but it was a misdirected loyalty. So on this note, I'll request going through to continue.
Thank you. So the conclusion is, in every situation, there is a facility to grow. In fact, it is the karma theory. Karma is not the theory which talks about binding principle, but it talks about empowering principle. To understand the diagnosis and then actually deal from there. So Karna's past was kind of negative one, but the past can influence the present and impact the future, but the past can never bind us from growing. Very interesting to understand. Gita talks about it. So Krishna comes to Karna's life in a very crucial moment. Krishna came as a peacemaker to Hastinapur, and what a deal! If you're a shrewd politician, Krishna told Duryodhana, he said, give the Pandavas 5 villages. That's all, 5 villages. But Duryodhana was not a shrewd, he was a stubborn. He said, 5 villages? He said, no, not even a space where you can place the needle. He said, I'm not going to give that much. So Krishna said, okay, no problem. Then Krishna calls for Karna. Why? Because, Krishna is very expert to understand, what makes Duryodhana so confident about this war. It was not his own power, not about Bhishma Dev, because Bhishma Dev told Duryodhana very clearly, I will fight every day for you, but I will never kill the 5 Pandavas. The war was not against the soldiers, the war was against the Pandavas. So Bhishma was redundant. Dronacharya also told that, no, I will fight strong, but I will not kill the Pandavas. But there was one person whom he had trusted so much. Who was that? Karna. He had determined to kill the Pandavas, and then therefore Krishna came to Karna and he spoke very nicely. And if you study this part of the Mahabharata, actually Karna exhibits great awareness about dharma. He was dharma sensitive in regards to information. But transforming that information into action was the problem. Somebody said, to know tomato as a fruit is an information, but not putting in a fruit salad is a wisdom. Right. So Karna beautifully, he speaks to Krishna so nicely about what is dharma, and he talks about what would happen in the war based upon his information, his gut feeling. He said, I can tell you, Krishna, that we are going to lose this battle. Duryodhana is going to lose this battle. He says, Duryodhana is not a good friend. He's a traitor. He does not respect his superiors. He does not respect his friends. He does not respect his teachers. And Krishna gives a lot of legalities, moralities to Karna, saying that, you know what, Karna, you are the eldest brother of the Pandavas. And from certain samhitas, you are entitled to be the king of Hastinapur. And it is not that Krishna was the one who revealed Karna that he is the son of Kunti. He knew beforehand. He said, I know about it. Some people write in their books, Karna was, emotionally brainwashed by Krishna, and therefore Karna became less effective when he was fighting the war. No, he knew before. So Krishna said, you can be the king. Now this is how dharma, and someone who is representing dharma, Krishna in the Mahabharata, is considered as incarnation, comes to this world to establish dharma. And what is establishing dharma means giving opportunity to everybody to grow from whatever background we have. It does not matter what background we have. We could be criminals and we could be pious. We could be less competent or we could be less confident. But everybody can get an opportunity. And this was the greatest opportunity Karna had. And what was the opportunity? And why was the opportunity? It was not the temptation which Krishna was offering. It was not the post. It was not the position. Rather, the whole reason was, Karna, if you come on the side of the Pandavas, Yudhishthira will accept you as the king. And since Duryodhana is your friend, he will also be happy. Both ways it will be win-win solution. The original Stephen Covey's principle. The war will stop. Can you imagine? Is it a temptation? Sometimes people say, oh, Krishna is very crooked, very shrewd. How could he do this? Tempt Karna. He's so loyal friend. He's destroying his friendship. People become emotional. Emotion does not help the society build. Even if it is a strategy, even if Krishna is shrewd, but that is going to help stop such a big war, why not do it? Very simple principle. And Krishna did not tell Karna, you quit your mother, because he had the background of handling both the mothers. He was very nice to his stepmother, Yashoda. He was very nice to his mother, Devaki. And he was very nice to his another mother who gave him poison, Putana. Right, when Krishna was departing from this world, some writers write, usually you call for very dear people in your life. He called for his mother. In India, if you get hurt, people say, Amma, Ai, right? You remember your mother. So Krishna called for his mother. They say 3 mothers came. Yashoda came, Devaki came, and Putana also came. You can handle so many mothers. So Krishna never told Karna that you give up your stepmother for the sake of your real mother. He could have had both the mothers. And what did Karna do? Karna basically rejected this opportunity. He said, Krishna, no. He said, for me, friendship with Duryodhana is the greatest thing. This is called as narrow-mindedness. Seeing from a very narrow perspective, loyalty at the cost of growth of society is not dharma. And what did Duryodhana say? He said, my dear Krishna, even if you offer this kingdom to me, I know very much, Yudhishthira Maharaj, my younger brother, will be more than happy to hear about my relationship to him. But if you give that kingdom to me, I will give it to Duryodhana. Krishna said, you have to leave this world. You don't deserve to be in this world. That was the time Krishna resolved that after giving you such an opportunity, you're still rejecting it. So war was about to start. And suddenly there was a conflict between Bhishma and Karna. Right? Because Bhishma was telling, it was a pre-poll. Nowadays America is full of, action. Right? Pre-poll, who is going to win the election? So there was a pre-poll survey. Duryodhana was asking, then who is the best warrior? Then Bhishma was talking about everybody. When it came to Karna and Ashwathama, Ashwathama was the son of Dronacharya, great warrior. So he said Ashwathama is less than a half a warrior. Then Duryodhana was shocked to hear that he's son of Dronacharya, how could be half a warrior? So he said, because this man, even though he is given a benediction of having a long life, still he fears for life. Therefore he is half a warrior. Ashwathama did not say anything. Dronacharya did not say anything because it was a fact. Then came to Karna. And Bhishma Dev said, Karna, because Karna was expecting that I will be glorified, I am so great, I am the disciple of Bhargava, I got this great Vijay, bow. So Bhishma said he is less than a half warrior. When Bhishma said this to Karna, Karna couldn't take it. One bad thing about Karna, he was not able to translate events in life for his favor. He always translated events of his life for his disfavor. When he heard this news from Bhishma, he became very angry. He said, how dare you say like this? You can't offend me like this. If I fight with you, on your side, under you, all the credit will go to you. The credit will not come to you, not come to me. Therefore, Bhishma, listen to me. Duryodhana, listen to me. Till Bhishma is going to live, I am not going to fight for this war. So this was the friendship of Karna. He did not ask Duryodhana, should I continue to fight for Bhishma under his guidance? He said, let your commander-in-chief die, then I'll come inside. So that was the beginning of conflict in their party. Your own man is not willing to fight and is praying that my commander-in-chief dies, then I will fight. Then Krishna came to him again. Just see how Krishna, you can call him an opportunistic, but rather Krishna is opportunity giver. He came to Karna. He said, my dear Karna, I heard that you are not going to fight on behalf of the Kauravas. Why don't you fight on behalf of the Pandavas, at least till Bhishma Dev is... Now you can see from so many different perspectives. Every time I've read this part, people say, come on, Krishna is, as bad as Shakuni. Always playing all these kind of tricks. But if you see Krishna as a teacher, as a coach, he always looks for an opportunity to give everybody. Take this opportunity and grow in life. But Karna rejected that opportunity, and therefore on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Arjuna, when he became very sympathetic for Karna, one of the greatest quality of Karna is to draw attention from people, draw sympathy of people. Including Arjuna. Arjuna stood there motionless. He said, no, he is down. His wheels have been stuck in the soil. I can't kill him. And Krishna said, Arjun, no, he deserves death. Now that part of the Mahabharata, when you see Krishna speaking to Karna, is very brutal and ruthless. If you see from that perspective, it's evil, it's bad, but it is dharma. And therefore, Mahabharata concludes in the Karna episode, Karna knew dharma, but unfortunately, he was not able to implement dharma in his day-to-day life. Therefore, he remained an unfortunate character. Therefore, people will sympathize with him, but rarely you find people naming their child as Karna. They always name their child Arjun. Even the greatest cricketer for those Indians, or for Americans, if you know about India's madness about cricket, they call cricket is our religion and Sachin is our god. There was a great cricketer called Sachin Tendulkar. So even Sachin Tendulkar named his son as Arjun, not Karna.
And we have Arjun award. Arjun award.
Yes, not Karna award. No? So I'll stop here with this understanding. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Can I have a couple of points?
So, thank you both so much. I think at this point, we do have a little bit of time. I appreciate everyone's patience. I know some of you may have other engagements to get to, and that's absolutely fine. But if we can maybe have just a few minutes of question and answer. If folks want to ask specific questions, those of you who are more familiar with the text, if there are specific episodes you'd like to ask about or controversial points that arise, please feel free to ask questions at this point. And I know we have some faculty members here too, so be warned.
Hi, so I don't have a specific question, it's more like a confirmation or clarification question. I was very intrigued by the flyer that Vineet sent us because tragic hero and a phrase that has hero was written in small letters and with a question mark. So my question is about the question mark. It seems like you are saying that Karna's story is tragic, but he was not a hero, and with that question mark, so I just wanted to get that confirmation, a more explicit confirmation. Is that what you are saying?
Okay, good question. So, was Karna not a hero, or was he a tragic hero?
I mean, tragedy is there
Yes.
because of his flaws, but was he a hero?
Okay, was he a hero? Yeah.
It's a very straight question.
Okay.
Because Vineet said we don't have much time.
Okay. Okay. He certainly had heroic qualities. He was expert archer. He was also a faithful friend. He was also very charitable. Along with that, whatever qualities we have, how we use them is important. And how we use them is a matter of decisions. So the time when Krishna came to Karna to invite him to come on the Pandavas side, he stuck with Duryodhana and he said, I have given my word of honor to Duryodhana, I'll stick there. I'm going to fight for him. At this point, actually, he had a choice between a word of honor and a life of honor. It's good to stick to one's words. To give a provocative example, so in Pakistan and Afghanistan, there are many poor children who are often fed and sheltered by jihadi groups. Now, if suppose a child is on the verge of starvation, at that time some people come and offer him facilities, food and everything. He says, I'm so grateful to you. I'll give myself to you. But eventually, if he comes to know that these are terrorists and they are going to kill innocent people, they're going to make me a part of their scheme to kill innocent people, should he continue his gratitude at that time? They say, I have my word of honor. I have promised them that I'll serve you. But when a bigger picture emerges, at that time, if that person sticks to that, that's not just a small wrong choice. It's a serious wrong choice. So on Karna's side, one side was the word of honor. He had given his word of honor. But the other side was a life of honor. He himself knew that Duryodhana was vicious. Sometimes some people say that, the morality of Duryodhana, of who was really bad and who was really good is not clear because everybody did bad. I'll come to that point a little later. But at this point, when Krishna has come, The Pandavas have not done anything wrong. Hmm? Nothing wrong. The Kauravas have tried to kill them repeatedly. Kauravas have dishonored their wife. And Karna also admits that Duryodhana is lacking in virtue. So at this point, he has a choice between a life of honor and a word of honor. Unfortunately, he chooses the word of honor. So that is a serious mistake on his part. So he was a hero, but he chose to be on the side of a villain. And another aspect of his tragedy is that eventually when he dies, when Arjuna kills him when he is off his chariot, not ready to fight. So at this point, if you just look at that incident in isolation, it appears as if he was a victim of fate and he was unfairly killed. But if we look at the complete picture, just before the war started, the commander of the Kauravas, he came and told that, please fight according to virtue. Remember the codes of war and fight according to those codes. So now the commander of the Pandavas thought, the Kauravas are the persons who have violated virtue so many times. So why are they reminding us? So he said, of course we are going to stick to the war codes. But if you violate the war codes, we won't hold ourselves back. Now actually, the specific way in which Karna was killed, and that was he was off his chariot and he was weaponless. At that time he was shot. The Kauravas themselves did that 3 times before this incident. On the 13th day, Abhimanyu was in a similar situation. And it was not just one warrior versus one warrior, 6 warriors versus one warrior. Arjuna was weaponless, Arjuna was chariotless. Abhimanyu was weaponless, Abhimanyu was chariotless. And Karna was one of the members who attacked him at that time. On the 14th day, Arjuna took a vow that I am going to kill Jayadratha, who is responsible for Abhimanyu's death. And Arjuna went way into the Kaurava army. At one particular point, Krishna told Arjuna that your horses have got exhausted now. You need to rest them, you need to feed them. So Arjuna, using mystic powers, created a lake with grass over there. And then Krishna appreciated and took the horses in the chariot over there. Arjuna got off the chariot. At that time, Arjuna did not cry foul. I am on the ground, don't shoot me now. No. What did Arjuna do? Arjuna kept fighting. The warriors were actually coming from him from all sides. But Arjuna was expertly swinging around, and to come towards Arjuna was like hit a wall of arrows. So again, the Kauravas did not stick to the Kshatriya code. On the 17th day itself, when Karna and Arjuna were fighting, at one particular point, Karna shot an arrow, and that arrow was charged with a snake weapon. And that weapon was meant to kill Arjuna. So Karna shot it at the head, at the neck rather. Now, his charioteer told him, shoot it at the chest. The chest is, why shoot at the chest? Even if you miss at the bottom, if you slightly, you will hit the stomach. That is also fatal. If you miss slightly up, it will go to the head. That is also neck. That is also fatal. But Karna had this, wanted to have some flair in what he was doing. Just like, suppose there is a cricket match that is getting over. You just need 1 run or 2 runs to win the match. And the batsman thinks, I'll hit a sixer. And hitting a sixer, he gets clean bowled. And he loses the match. So Karna shot the arrow at the neck. When he shot the arrow at the neck, Krishna saw what was happening. Now Arjuna had different strategies when arrows would come. Sometimes he would counter the arrows. Sometimes he would just let the arrows hit. He would trust that his armor was strong enough to take the arrows. He did not recognize that this arrow was so dangerous, but Krishna recognized. What Krishna did, Krishna forcefully brought his foot down on the side of the chariot. And when he brought the foot down, the chariot went under the ground. When the chariot went under the ground, so Arjuna also went lower, and then the arrow that was meant to hit his neck, that hit his crown. And he lost his crown, but his life was saved. Now, after this, the chariot had gone down. Now, Krishna had to get off the chariot, drag the chariot physically out, and then again resume the fight. During this time also, Karna kept fighting. And Arjuna did not say, stop fighting. Wait till I'm motionless. So actually, what Karna did and what the Kauravas did, the same coin, Krishna paid them back. So his heroism was that he did have archery skills, he did have virtuous qualities, but his tragedy was that all this was lost under his misdirected royalty. So yes, he definitely is a hero in the sense that
One question.
he had virtuous qualities, but his tragedy is that he made wrong choices. So it is not just that he was a victim of fate. Yes, we could say his birth was a victim of fate, but eventually when he died, it was a victim of his own choices rather than a victim of fate. Does that answer your question?
Yes, you
Thank
did.
you.
We'll take maybe one or two more questions.
One more.
Yeah, please.
So you had mentioned beautifully about Draupadi and Karna's, dharma and the when she was disrobed. So I have watched the scene of where Draupadi weds the Pandavas, and I'm unable to convince myself is it dharma, because Arjuna actually won the Swayamvar, right? So Arjun should have married her. I know the scene, the background, what her mother said, and then. So how do you? What is your perception on this thing?
The
where
marriage
she
of
married,
Draupadi.
Yeah, married all the five.
Yeah. So therefore, again, is it right or wrong?
Exactly. The dharma.
Yeah. So therefore, if you go back to the background of the story, just before that, just to add, Karna, straight question.
Yeah.
He probably answered little. He was trying to be nice to him.
Me too, because I think he's more like a character, like he was in a character role. If we think that Mahabharata is like a mega Bollywood film, he was not the hero. So I actually never thought that he was the hero.
But many people
I was
think.
already convinced. I just wanted to
Okay.
get a confirmation from you that we are on the same page.
Actually, it's easier to recognize Dushyasana and Duryodhana. No?
Yeah.
But to recognize Karna as a villain is very difficult.
Yeah, he was not.
Very difficult.
You're right.
Extremely difficult.
And there were so many movies.
Yeah,
and
but
books.
they cause greatest damage to the society because they sound good, they sound nice, they attract a lot of sympathy, but their decisions cause a lot of violence to the society. One decision, if we admit, okay, I accept, even though some people will misunderstand me, but at least it will help the society grow. He didn't do that. He could have been a king and made Pandavas happy and the Kurus also happy, but he didn't choose to do that. So in your question about Draupadi marrying 5 husbands, there is one aspect in the Mahabharata which is called as Daiva. Now the concept of Daiva in the Gita, there is always a conflict amongst especially Indians. They say India's problem is we have depended too much on God. Our first Prime Minister said the problem for India is our temples. He said, therefore I want to build new temples, our industries. There is no problem in industries, but not at the cost of undermining, minimizing the concept of faith. And without recognizing the background of, how dharma and artha, they are actually always in harmony. Dharma should not destroy artha. Whatever dharma we practice, that should not make us poverty stricken. And artha should not make us, become less with dharma. So harmonize between the two. So this is the theme of Gita. And another beautiful theme of Gita is how Daiva and endeavor, they are harmonized. If you say, I need to depend on Daiva, but without endeavor you don't experience Daiva. But only wonder without Daiva will not happen. They are harmonized. So Krishna explained there are 5 factors for success. One is endeavor. Second is right instrument to endeavor. Third is place to endeavor. Fourth is our involvement. And fifth is Daiva. 20% Daiva is there. 80% is our efforts. Right? But Daiva is an important factor. So Vyasdeva becomes a Daiva player in the Mahabharata. So much before they came into Draupadi's kingdom, Vyasdeva came and told Yudhishthira Maharaj, he said, there is a situation in your life, like how the science of astrology is there, which talks about, okay, be careful because your nakshatra is this, your graha is this. It is not a conclusive science, it's an indicative science. It is not talking about certainty, but it is talking about what could happen. So people follow astrology. When nothing works, people go to astrologer. or before everything works, they go to astrologer. Either way, people go to astrologer. So Vyasdev told Yudhishthira Maharaj, in your life, there is something very unique, which has never happened before. He said, what is that? He said, you are all going to marry one woman. Much before Yudhishthira Maharaj actually came to the place of Draupadi. And when this incident happened, Kunti was simply an instrument. It's not that because she said, therefore they married. And when the Pandavas married Draupadi, again Vyasdev came. He reconfirmed. Narad Muni came. He reconfirmed. And when Draupadi got to know, Drishtadyumna got to know that our sister is married to 5 men, they were shocked. How could this happen? Draupadi came and he said, how could you do this to our daughter? Then Vyasdev took him aside. He told, you know what? This is a very exceptional incident. Now, therefore, what Mahabharata says, what happened, you have no control. But what do you do with what happened? That is important. Therefore, it was supposed to happen in our destiny. It should not become a legacy. And it has never become a legacy. And therefore, another interesting thing, Draupadi, even though is such a great, she is considered as the personification of goddess of fortune. But nobody names their daughter as Draupadi. Right? Nobody can handle that name. It's only she alone. No? So that is how Mahabharata talks about.
Also, I guess maybe because we are living in a different, with different kinds of sensibilities nowadays, in comparison to when Mahabharata was created and what kind of values were presented in that epic. But I personally really like Draupadi's character. I feel like she propels the plot in Mahabharata, because if she was only Arjuna's wife, the Mahabharata would have not gone on the path it went, basically, as a plot.
She is the catalyst for uniting the diversity.
Yeah.
She is the unifying factor. Because 5 Pandavas are completely different. Yudhishthira Maharaj is like Mahatma Gandhi. Bhima is like Bhagat Singh. Right. And Arjuna is like another character. So they are all very different amongst each other. There is no harmony in their qualities. But what harmonizes is Draupadi. Without Draupadi, she is the heart of Mahabharata. Thank you. We'll stop here.
So I think, let's stop here, although our speakers are kind enough that they'll be with us for a little bit longer. So if anyone has any questions or would like to get some clarification, you can speak to them one-on-one. Also, because the Mahabharata is so vast, you will probably have questions that we won't get to tonight, even one-on-one. But have no fear, because you can take some of this home with you. So we have some books we have books by both of our speakers. So we've got 3 here from Chaitanya Charan, and we've got 2 here from Govinda, including hot off the presses, Karna on Trial. So you can hear in a little bit more detail, and especially some of the episodes we didn't get a chance to. I'd asked them just to touch on a couple of key episodes, but actually there's so much more there. So I really invite you to take advantage of this opportunity. This is like Krishna coming, giving an opportunity to Karna. So they've come, they've given us this opportunity, so please take it. There are books out here, and you can see Devinder. Can you please? Devinder ji is here, and he's helping with some of the book selling, and he'll let you know about how to take these home with you. There's a table, yes, there's a table right out there. Also, if you haven't already done so, please make sure you do sign in, so we know that who you are, and we can keep you connected to these events. And please do continue to let us know how we can better serve you with the Hindu Life program. But we're so happy you're all here, and we just want to once again express our gratitude to all of you for coming out, and of course to our very special guest speaker. So once again, let's give them a big round. Thank you all so much. Have a good night.